Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Battle Brothers Season 3. As today, we've officially completed our first Crisis contract, so now we enjoy the spoils. Which, for now at least, mostly just boils down to a handful of modest upgrades, a new helm, some famed spikes, and perhaps most prominent of all, a proper war bow for Arrow, which he should hopefully get some good use out of. At least until Mark decides whether or not he can build a masterwork. Really at the mercy of the RNG on that one. Beyond that, we're currently sitting on a stack of 12,000 gold. We've got 3 empty slots in the roster. But sadly, none of the local recruits really jumped out at me. At this point, we're really kind of holding out for the premium sort of recruits, you know, Hedge Knights, Gladiators, Oath Takers. Maybe a utility pick or two if a good one happens to come along. But unfortunately, the best we've got on offer here is retired soldiers and raiders, and while they're workable, they're not really what we're looking for. So sadly, for now at least, those roster slots stay emptied, whilst we bulk up our savings for that inevitable expense. Speaking of which, we've got a noble contract on offer, so let's have a peek. Count Gisbert von Harkon's comparing 2 scrolls when you enter. My taxmen are falling a little short these days. A shame, though I guess it's good business for you, now that I can't afford to send my so-called loyal knights anywhere. He throws the papers aside and tenses his hands over his table. My spies are reporting goblins have set up camp at a place they call Grisnik Kadox, west of Angeln. I need you to go there and do what my bannermen refuse to do. Well, it's not the kind of work I was hoping for. I really thought we'd be in for another noble war contract, but, I mean, we do still need potions for goblin overseers and shamans. Not a great sign they're already pivoting off the war, though. That kind of implies that the crisis is very quickly coming to an end, but, you know, yeah, we'll take it. Pay's not great, but it is just a 1-star. Hopefully nothing too far out of our current wheelhouse. Oh, okay. That's not bad. That's like maybe a 2-day journey there and back. Also gives us an excuse to pass through Angeln. Grab a few more nets along the way. Plus, we do have these strongholds, but I'm pretty sure those are undead. Unfortunately... Oh, right, we have this one too. Interesting. Okay, well, you know what? That might actually just be bandits, because it's pretty distant from the others. As the raiders set off for the distant goblin outpost of Grisnik Kadox, their path took them off the well-traveled roads along the southern range of Sleeping Giant's Back. But soon their eagle-eyed scout spied the telltale signs of ancient architecture, peeking from a higher rise. And, curiosity piqued, the raiders moved to investigate. Only to find themselves met by the startled shouts of a well-concealed troop of brigands, led by none other than Raben the Hawk, yet another self-styled bandit lord, albeit one that was more heavily armed and armored than most. We've got them outnumbered, I think we've got them outgunned, so let's hang back for the moment, see if they rush. Yeah, for those who are unfamiliar, it's one of the more exploitable aspects of the in-game AI. If the enemies see that you have more ranged weapons than they do, they'll usually try to rush you, though it can vary by enemy type. But in this case, we seem fine. Yeah, I think my main concern was that some of the brigands might have busted out throwing weapons, and I think those count as ranged weapons too. But no, it seems like they're keen to engage, which will definitely not work out in their favor. We kind of lucked out with this valley right in the middle of the battlefield. It means they have to go down to low ground to get to us. They'll be lucky to survive the approach. As Raven's men stumbled down the slope, the raiders opened fire. A hurled axe catching an approaching bludgeoner in the arm. The man stumbling to one side, the axe bit deep. A thunderous boom. The bloodied bludgeoner fell. A second crack sounding shortly after. Another canny bandit falling on the flank. Raven hesitated, gesturing for a few more of his men to take point. Bowman popped off another shot. Arrow sunk feathers deep through a crossbowman's shoulder. A hurled hatchet glanced off an advancing pickman. As the bandits continued their wary approach. Growing frustrated by his men's apparent hesitance, Raven finally rushed forward. Blade held high, ready for an overhand strike. "I got this one," Tripp said, nodding towards the advancing bandit leader. He readied his stiff-pointed rondel, a few other raiders shuffling to one side to clear a path. Random eyed the approaching bandit chief, a perfect target for his new flail, but he refrained, reluctantly. Rassel moved up, flanking a swordsman. A swift swing of his club, the man staggering, stunned. Merlin pushed up, shield at the ready, as he engaged the belligerent bandit boss. Cetrus slipped down the slope. A swing of his hammer, cracking a swordsman's arm in two. Tripp finished him with a lethal lunge, then quickly slipped past, breaking a bandit pickman in passing. Though Drakiith was quick to capitalize on the man's craven nature. And Rook moved to guard the rise, to thwart the advance of two more bandits. A clatter and crunch as Random finally swung, the bloodied and blind panicked pickman stumbling to the ground, ribcage shattered. Val grabbed for his famed spikes, hefting one, testing its weight. A careful toss. An approaching hammerman stumbled, arm hanging limp at his side. Though a return shot from a distant archer clipped Bowman in turn. A blast from Mark's muzzle, and the pickman finally perished. Arrow set his sights on more distant game. Two quick shots, a crossbowman felled. And then he really dropped the hammer. Drak held back, as did Tripp, waiting for Rabin to overextend. And overextend he did. Massive blade bouncing off of Verlin's waiting shield. Even as Rook impaled another bandit on south, the man breathing in ragged, gurgling gasps. Verlin held his ground, a subtle nod, a gesture for Tripp and Drakiith to move in. Even as he took the first jab, with his suddenly palmed blade. Raven grunted, annoyed at first, but panic suddenly sparking in his eyes as he realized his grave mistake. Too late, Trip set upon him with a furious frenzy, his defenseless arm dangling as it was so deftly dissected. Another jab from Drakiith pushed him to the brink. The gunners held back, letting the rest of the raiders take to the field. And Raven the Hawk fell, wings thoroughly clipped. The rest of his men now realizing the folly of continuing to fight. The flailmen on North already favoring a broken hand. And an axeman swiftly felled. The archers behind threw down their bows, turning to flee in blind panic. Even as the shieldman behind them was crushed neath Cetrus's hammer blows. The raiders pushed up the rise, Rassel rushing in from the north, cracking one of the archers across the shin. And it was all downhill from there. Raven the Hawk may have once soared high, but now both he and his men were permanently grounded. Rassel claiming the second to last. And the final as well. Well done. Wow, Rassel, not a bad outing for your first time in the field as a frontliner. And hey, look at that. We pulled Rabin's reinforced male hauberk, though sadly, once again, we flubbed the roll on the actual helm. Though he did get his greatsword, so I mean, that's something. And quickly rolling the camp, the raiders move on. Another easy victory under their belt, though Diego still picked up a few new tricks. Level 9, not too far from soft cap now, so we have to start thinking about what we're doing with him. And I believe Verlin got fearsome at 9, but we could really use more rotation, so let's go ahead and grab that first, and then we'll do fearsome at 10. And I mean, ultimately beyond that, hey, actually got a decent melee roll for once. Beyond that, I think we might change things up once he hits 11. Verlin got Master Spearman, but that goes hand in hand with his higher melee skill, which unfortunately Diego lacks. Diego, though, actually has a pretty decent initiative despite the heavy shield. So we might just go ahead and lean into that. Since hit or miss, Overwhelm can still contribute, as long as you're going first. Yeah, I mean, even if he maxes his last two melee rolls, he's soft capping at 63. That's well below where he needs to be for a reliable spear wall. So I do think his final two are apt to be Fearsome and Overwhelm. I do like to maintain consistent builds, but, you know, in this particular case, I feel like it's a justified divergence. But, you know, always curious to hear what you folks think. And, you know, it's not like we have to decide right away. You find Kingsrook the Sergeant scouring a red book. He closes the book and sighs. As an anatomist, I am compelled to think that monsters, as you laymen would call them, do not merely appear for the sake of appearance. Instead, everything has a purpose. In a sense, and through the old gods, we can trust that these elements have in actuality a divine purpose. Yet some of my peers have found bones of creatures that have not once been seen in the flesh. It appears that these entities have disappeared entirely. It begs the question, does such evidence entail that we ourselves will one day disappear? An affirmative on that front suggests then that the divinities above are not actually weighing their visions in our favor. We walk under the gaze of mere happenstance. A terrible thought, indeed. Curious, you ask what these mysterious monsters look like. The anatomist opens the red book and shows you a drawing. They are quite similar to humans, but larger with implied bulkiness around the neck and shoulders. The skulls carry these notches, similar to that of horns, and the spinal columns have extra vertebrae, and 3 of them near the top, broadening out, as if they were holding on to something that would extend far from the body. See, here? The back is almost like a bony mantle. Interesting. You ask the anatomist if he's seen one of these skeletons for himself, and he says no. He says he's only seen it in the text. You ask if he paid for this text, and he says he did. You ask him if perhaps the notion of old, bizarre monsters was but a mere sales pitch to get him to buy a book of bullshit. The anatomist ponders for a time. He nods and agrees that it is likely that he has purchased a spoof. He grows angrier by the second and suddenly throws the tome into the campfire, pledging himself to more earthly studies going forward. He thanks you for your ability to cut through the nonsense and eminence fronts this world puts on. Feels like a slight overreaction, but you know what, I get it. The man's likely still reeling from Rev's recent demise. The anatomist equivalent of an existential crisis, perhaps. Though, that said, I will say, from the description of that skeleton, it actually kind of sounds like he might be describing one of the cut creatures from the original game concept. The lizard men or snake men, perhaps. During the original, I want to say, pitch for the Kickstarter, they were originally looking at a much more generic high fantasy setting, which included much more conventional, like Conan-styled monsters, including reptilian humanoids. You can still see them in some of the earliest concept art. But yeah, sadly they fell by the wayside as they leaned harder and harder into the whole Germanic folklore thing instead. You know, later supplemented with additional mythologies with Frozen North and Blazing Deserts. Though I certainly wouldn't complain if the lizard men or snake men somehow made it back in. And a new ambition. Most of which aren't particularly practical to pursue, but we'll go ahead and grab the crisis ambition. If nothing else, I believe that'll give us an idea of how much longer the current crisis is going on. And technically, we'll get credit for it, regardless of what happens, since we have now officially completed at least one contract. Oh, okay. Actually, I was worried it was starting to peter out, but it's actually just a temporary slow patch. Though that's, of course, for future retcon to worry about. For now, we stay on task. There you go, Czar. And let's hit the pause button real quick. I'll take care of some quick and dirty trading. One sec. And we're back. Cart's still a mite bit cluttered, but that's mostly from monster parts from that last Noxera fight. We'll get that cleared up once we pass through a town with a taxidermist, but for now, we set our sights on Grisnik, Cadox, and possibly an undead stronghold, though I'm not super confident about that. We might hold off on that until after the Goblin Outpost. Since, I think I was saying it earlier, but Yeah, our biggest drawback right now is that with Rev's death, aside from just the loss of sheer firepower, we also lost our backup bannerman, so that's definitely something we'll have to plan around when considering future hires. Until then, we'll have to be particularly wary about certain types of undead. Oh, but these, however, are, of course, easy prey. Let me do a quick shuffle here, then we'll run these guys down. Just beyond Angle, the raiders soon found themselves stalked by a ragtag group of ruffians, though they set off running the second they realized they'd been made. The raiders were quick to give chase, Rassel calling across amidst ragged breaths. "You think it's more ravens, guys? That hawk fella?" "Who cares?" Mal retorted. "They're clearly up to no good. Don't really matter who they work for, past or present. World won't miss a few more bandits." Four to four. Not sure if they'll advance or not. Let's wait and see. Diego moves to cover Tommy. And spying the ruffians' apparent reluctance to engage, the raiders start to slowly ease their way forward. Though, as a proper shield line is formed, the raiders quicken their step, moving to force the point. Yeah, they're just gonna hold and fire on us, so we'll have to take the fight to them. A carefully lobbed shot from Bowman. An arch foe yelps, elbow impaled. Diego rushed in, first to engage the enemy line. Arrow stepped up, watching for easy targets. Mark softened the northern shield wall with shrapnel. Sigmar circling to press on their flank. Slipping right by. Finding his way to their delicate back line. A second blast from Alois. Flesh sundered, chain links torn. One archer stumbles back, loosing a quick shot, then collapsing to the ground. Blood seeping from his body like a living sieve. Verlin pushed in, breaking apart their southern line. Rassel hot on his heels. Cetrus pushed in on north. Oh, that was an interesting move. Yeah, I mean, I can technically see what he was trying to do. He was blocking off Sigmar, but man, that is terrible for the crossbowmen he just displaced. As swiftly displayed by Mal, who wastes no time in gutting the unfortunate archer. Mark carefully trims the edges. A gutted bandit turned inside out. Alois sends shrapnel through the center of their line. Another archer annihilated. Sigmar stabs a panicked bandit. Rassel crushes another. Random takes a careful swing. The crack of bones as his flail dashes across two distracted targets. Cetrus crushes the shieldman's throat. Mal swiftly stepping in, finishing the job with a swift and merciless thrust. Berlin fells yet another, the final archer slain. And just like that, the fight is done. The brigands never stood a chance. One losing a limb to Tommy's axe. Another falling to Alois. And Rook claims the final kill. Nicely done, Raiders. Small bit of armor damage here and there, but well worth the quick detour. Not so much in loot, but I did see a level up on Mark, so I'd say that alone is worth it. Though we'll go ahead and dump some of the cheaper stuff here. We want to keep space freed up for choicer targets. Now let's have a look at those level ups. Nothing for Sig or Mal just yet, but getting close. So I guess it's just Mark, who is our first gunner to hit 9. Which, I mean, honestly, based on how they've been performing, I think is pretty easy. I think we're just going to go with the classic Berserk Frenzy combo. In fact, let's lead with Berserk. See how we do without Recover for a bit. And then as for stats, obviously range. Along with, looking at the rolls here, I'm going to say Initiative and Fatigue. I mean, long-term Recover is probably pretty indispensable, at least for the more ambitious battles. But I am at least entertaining the notion of potentially skipping it. There's certainly some appeal to grabbing something like Crippling Strikes or Executioner instead. But again, something for future retcon to worry about. That said, yes, given that we're already about 30 minutes in, we'll go ahead and push past the undead for now. I'm certainly not closing the episode on that. And we'll round things out with our Goblin Outpost. Really hoping we run into an Overseer. Risky, but we do want that potion. Wild Beast tracks. Ignore for now. Oh, okay. And we've got Wolf Riders. Not what I was hoping to face, but something we at least know we can handle. Though perhaps not with this particular crew. Yeah, give me a sec to reshuffle. These guys love to flank, so we need to make sure we're ready for that. good to go. The jagged and sagged architecture of Grisnik Kadox loomed on the horizon. The raiders' arrival met with shrill cries and the baying of wolves. Riders soon boiled forth from the ragged palisade, but the raiders were ready. The paw tracks found in abundance in the surrounding plains had tipped them off, and Rook swiftly circled his pike, the swirling motion signaling the rest of the raiders to form up. As the raiders shuffled restlessly, Bowman popped off a quick shot. An arrow sinking through a sprightly figure's side. Rack split off from the rest, axe held ready, face covered but eyes crinkling, with the telltale signs of a bloodthirsty grin. And the rest of the raiders stumbled and bumbled their way into an unfamiliar position, encircling their arrow and axe-wielding allies. The riders bearing down on them were moving to flank, but would swiftly give up on that once it became clear that such an approach simply would not work. Zarmal split off to the other side, whilst the rest of the raiders fell into place. Not quite how I meant for them to settle, but that'll do. I meant to have Diego where Trip is, but I think we're fine. And as predicted, the riders swiftly took the bait, finding that flanking was no longer an option. They rushed in, sights set on the two strays that had wandered from the rest of their pack. The first two riders upon their ranks were met with a flurry of projectiles. One felled 'neath a hail of arrows, the other staggered and broken by deliberate acts of violence. The rest of the raiders held, antsy and anxious to engage, but knowing better than to break rank. Except, of course, for Rax, who gleefully set into the first rider who reached him. The rider himself decapitated. The mount felled as well on the backswing. No, hold. Though you, I think, can advance. The raiders' formation blossomed, spreading out like a pair of awkward bladed wings. A few of their foes might still seek to flank, but they would now have to circle exceptionally wide, which would give the raiders ample time to reposition. Trip slipped up, dagger hilted in a wolf's neck, the rider tumbling to the ground. And as expected, a few of the riders did indeed try to take advantage of the now open flank. Though in doing so, they had foolishly wandered into Rax's range. Two more axes from Tommy, another rider teetering, arm nearly torn from his torso. Zarmal took down another wolf on south. The rider stumbling to the ground, just barely landing on his feet. Drak juked south, reinforcing the southern flank. Whilst Rassel moved to the rear, shield raised, ready to receive. Random stepped to one side, lining up a shot. An awkward swing, but one rider was still clipped, head bursting asunder. Bowman popped off a shot toward the rear. A flanker panicking as an arrow sank deep. Trip gutted a prone rider. Then carefully pushed in, albeit from an angle so as to only engage one rider. Verlin reinforced the south. Diego the north. Cetrus crushed a rider's throat, then pushed in, the rider panicking at his approach. But before he could flee, Rook swept the wolf out from under him. The rider tumbled gasping to the ground, quickly crawling away, trying to push past Rax. The last few riders tried to finish their flank. As Drak swept away another wolf on south. And Tommy met the flankers with his axe. An arm near severed, a wolf felled. Trip catching another rider unawares. The hapless Gabo's arm left in ruin. Spear dashed aside, Diego went for his dagger, slashing the throat of the wolf bearing down on him. A sweep of Rax's axe, another wolf put down. Zarmal guts yet another rider. Arrow puts a shot through the last flanker's side. Verlin clears the south. Spear plunging through rider and mount both in one savage stab. And the rest of the raiders rally, moving back towards center. Rook sticks and moves, pike piercing the last mounted goblin's chest. Rassel rushes in before he can flee, brutally clubbing the goblin beside him. And the fight is all but won. The doomed demi-humans take a few last jabs, jagged pikes deflected by raider steel. The final wolf falls to Tommy's toss. A goblin neath Diego's spear. Bowman sinks an arrow through another bloodied rider's face. And the last two fall to Rax's axe. Also, first legacy level. And sadly, nothing much of note on loot. But that's fine. That leaves some empty space for another potential target of opportunity. No wonder men do not wish to fight goblins. They put up a fight far beyond their stature. A shame one could not put their minds into a man. But perhaps it is for the best that such ferocity is contained within such small beings. Indeed. And arrow. Let's get that legacy level taken care of, which sadly is pretty straightforward. As I've mentioned before, No more perks. At this point, we just get a very small amount of stat points to distribute. They're not even rolled, it's just a flat +1, so really just incremental increases to areas that could still use some work. Which, yeah, I think in this case will be initiative and resolve. And I think that brings us to a good place to call it. Unfortunately, we're a bit too far into the episode to really risk getting caught up in another slog. So that would definitely rule out the undead locations. But, I will consider our options. We're still in pretty good shape. We've got a fair bit of room left in the wagon. We don't want to linger out here too long, since obviously we want to get back to the crisis sooner rather than later. Take advantage of those crisis contracts while we still can. But I do think we're apt to hit one more stronghold before we head back. I'm just not sure we want it to be undead. So yeah, we'll hit the pause button for now. We'll take care of some post-battle bookkeeping. And we'll pick up here next time. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to RobbyB23, Revenant, Alois, Arrow Bowman, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.